Guys, can you hear me? Can you see me? I'm here, at least trying to be here. We had tremendous difficulties. Yeah, Drew.
Yep.
Well, let's see how it goes this time.
Yeah, I see you on there now. It says one.
It
5. You're
said
good.
two. Well, it's five. All right. I
Well, it
think
takes
it's five.
it'll take a while, but I think you fixed it.
I don't know what was this. This never happened before. So I don't know. Five people only. I don't know. Nine. All
Hey, now
right.
you're up to 9. Yeah, it takes a while for the signal to go out.
Well, yeah. And I told them to be here 36 minutes ago. So probably a lot of
Yeah,
people
hopefully.
gave
So,
up.
what
I
time is it?
apologize for the
What
start.
time is it where you are? Just for my
Uh,
reference.
11:36 p.m. Not,
PM. Wow.
nah,
But you're a
not
late night guy, right?
yeah. Usually not before 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait for a few more people to join. This is lagging a bit. The number is not real.
Well, my
Fortunately.
sister is here.
Oh,
So,
cool.
hi, Jen.
Greetings for her.
She is in the Dallas area. I'm in Houston, as you know, my friend. You have more Texas knowledge than most Texans. I'm impressed. That's
Yeah.
impressive, my friend.
All right. We'll wait until we get to 30 and then we'll start.
Yeah, you're getting
Just
there.
curiously, I don't know. I really, sorry I have to use the word. I fucked this up. I don't know what happened, really. But we were
It
simply
happens. My friend, that happens all the time. That's the nature of YouTube.
indeed, obviously, yeah. And these numbers are so low. I have never experienced
Well,
anything like
you're late, and then people,
yeah.
catch the algorithm later. I'm
I
just
let
looking. I
them
mean, some
down.
of these are definitely some Serbian names. I like that.
Yeah, those are greetings from Poland.
Is it Poland, really?
Yeah.
But you're in Serbia,
I'm in
right?
Serbia. I'm in
What
Serbia.
what what town? I'm just curious. I don't know the
Belgrade.
geography that well. What is it?
Belgrade, Serbia.
Belgrade. Yeah, okay. Belgrade's big. Yeah, that's the big city there, obviously. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Belgrade.
Belgrade
You
is
know my state better, way better than I know where you are,
well, yeah,
which I love.
years of following U.S. politics.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh,
Really,
so shout out
because
to Poland. Shout out to
domestic
the
politics
people in
is
Poland.
lost. We are lost as a country.
Yeah,
So
I know a little bit about the background. My friend is an expert in global politics and the history, and was kind of giving me the background refresher on your country and how it's trying to be more like Poland. And because Poland is so important, the national identity of Poland is
it
huge.
is. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
shout out to the
They're
folks in
Slavs.
Poland. Good,
They're Slavs,
love you
like
guys.
they're Slavs, like us Serbs, but a little bit different.
Yeah,
There are
a
many
little bit different.
similarities. There. All right, we have 27 people, 27 disappointed
Eh,
people, or not so disappointed people. I think they'll join it.
They can
This.
always watch later if they had to go to bed.
Well, that's true. That is true. Of course,
They
but
said you. It says you have been smoking since you were in short shorts.
that's a Sopranos. That's a Sopranos. That's a
Is that
Sopranos.
Sopranos? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
uh, because when you remember, you of course watched Rocky, and you know Bart
Yeah,
Young,
absolutely.
Paulie from Rocky, Rocky's brother-in-law. So he made
Yeah,
a guest starring episode, made a huge impact. Bart Young was an amazing actor, and
absolutely.
he had he in that episode he appeared for like half an hour, and he had a lung cancer, and uh, Junior Soprano, Tony's uncle, says, what did you what did you expect? He was smoking those camels since Moses wore short pants.
Oh
And
man, that's a
ironically,
great line. That's a great line.
I'm also smoking camel, so I'm fucked too.
Because of the Sopranos.
No, 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 nothing to do with no,
So
just a
I listen. I usually what I do before a pod for a YouTube show like this, for prep, I listen to music. So of course you know one song I listen to in prep for this is called.
all right. Can you repeat, please? I for some reason YouTube is now translating
I
messages.
lost
It,
you. Oh, you're there.
YouTube is not translating the messages to Serbian, and I didn't ask
Oh
for it.
really?
All right, I'll go through it. But all right, we have 30 people, 30 disappointed people, and our friend Sirius, who also has a pretty big YouTube channel of more than 100,000 subs, is asking, is DB Cooper still alive? You're an expert on that, so can we get some kind of an answer?
And I messed up everything. Okay, somebody was like trying to call me and screwing up the feed.
Uh huh.
Okay, so real quick, I listen to music to prep for stuff. So I listened to "Woke Up This Morning" because I love that song. I know there's the short version was the one in The Sopranos, but I know that's an English band, which most people would not realize that don't really know The Sopranos well. That's an English band, and it's what Alabama Six or something that wrote "Woke Up This Morning," the Sopranos theme song.
To be honest, I have no idea. I will have to check it
Yeah, I
because
think it's an English band. Woke up this morning. I mean, because when I first heard that, I loved it, and I was
oh,
like,
this is
because I
American
love
accent.
music to video, and that's a British band that wrote that. And I know there's two versions of it. There's something called I can't remember there's a longer version of that song from the one they play in the TV show. That's even better in my opinion, and I know your viewers probably know it. But that's I know that's an English band. Yeah, somebody said Alabama 3. Thank you. I was saying
Alabama
Alabama
Street.
6. Thank you to
Yeah.
your viewer. Alabama 3 wrote that. Woke up this morning.
All right, our friend
Great
Siri,
song.
who is my friend for a long time now, he's from Jersey, and
Oh,
he
from
has
Jersey. All right. He's right there in the middle of it all.
yeah, and he's very much into. He has a YouTube channel of more than 100,000 subs, and he's
Yeah,
asking
cool.
that, do you think that DB Cooper is still alive?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
Can you elaborate, please?
Yeah, well, this will lead me in. Because this will also tie into the mafia as well. And I know you have a mafia, aficionados here, which I like. Obviously, if you like The Sopranos, you like stuff like, all things mafia, like Goodfellas. I'm a big fan of that movie. That's a huge impact on me. Like, one of my sisters is here, and she knows. My
Mhm.
cousin is Steve, so just for my sister's knowledge, we love that movie and watched it so many times. But right now, I'm doing a podcast that my friend has put together organically on his own. He's a very skilled guy. He goes by D-Raj, and it's called "You Should Not Know This," and it's on YouTube. You can find the episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and that's the big project I'm working on now. And what it is my DB Cooper suspect, whose name is Ted B. Braden, that's talked about in my book. It's what happened to him after the heist and what he was doing in the 80s. And a lot of what he was doing in the 80s was working for the Pittsburgh Mafia out of Pittsburgh. He was running jobs for the Pittsburgh Mafia. So
Yeah.
it's got that mafia tie-in now with my Cooper suspect, which is really cool. And it also involves a biker gang called the Pagans. So they were kind of a rival of the Hell's Angels. So it's very interesting. If you like mob stuff, we are into the mafia as far as my DB Cooper suspect goes. So when you ask me if he survived, I'm pretty, I wasn't on the plane, and I'm not one of these guys that says if you don't believe it's my guy, you're not my friend or something. I'm not like that. Same with, my Zodiac stuff. So
Yeah,
it's like I wasn't at Lake Berryessa, right? I wasn't on Flight 305. I did talk to a guy that was on Flight 305, which was interesting.
really.
So that was in, I do like my suspect, so I go along those lines, but I don't do it to be obnoxious or whatever. But my suspect died in 2007. But the podcast, it really, at this point in its life, it's going to be multi episodes. Talks a lot about his involvement with the mafia, and what's interesting about that, and I wanted to make sure I got this in, was I have my best friend in high school here in Houston, who moved to New York City. He was a semi-pro musician, guitar player, phenomenal guitar player. He eventually winds up in Boston, Massachusetts, working for Homeland Security. And he read me and my co-author's book, Paratrooper of Fortune, about my DB Cooper suspect. It's really about his life and the possibility that he could be DB Cooper. And he called me 2 years ago after reading the book, and I hadn't made contact with my buddy in like 27 years because he was living in New York City, Boston, and we just kind of lost touch a little bit. And he was into Cooper and the whole story. And he calls me, and I'm at a restaurant or something waiting for a table. And he says, "Hey, Drew, it's George." And I was like, "Hey, man, how you been?" I mean, it's been like years. And he goes, "I read your book, Paratrooper of Fortune." And he said, "It's amazing." He goes, "This guy's fascinating." And he goes, "There's a part in there where you talk about him stealing fish and meat and driving into Massachusetts." And he says, he goes, "I'm working for Homeland now out of Boston. So this is the whole area." He goes, "I'm telling you right now, Drew, your guy was working for the mafia." And I was like, whoa, that's the first time I ever heard my Cooper suspect even mentioned in the same word as mafia. Now, CIA is a different thing, but mafia, this is new. And 2 years ago, and I'm like, "How do you know that?" He goes, "Because if he took stolen goods, because my suspect was driving an 18-wheeler post hijack, Consolidated Freightways, and for PPG, which is stands for Pittsburgh Plate Glass, which later goes into the paint business out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he said, "There's no way that your guy could have brought in those stolen goods over state lines into Massachusetts if the mafia was not getting their cut." So he goes, "Trust me, your boy was working for the mob." And then my friend D-Raj does this deep dive into Ted Braden, which is what the podcast is about, and finds out that indeed my friend was right 2 years ago. He's working for the mafia out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I can read the background on that.
Drew, something happened. Not not because of me. This time, at least. Probably he got a call. He's a busy man. Well, let's see what happened. I'm sorry about this. Drew,
Yeah, I might have lost you.
someone called you?
Nah. I'm just gonna have to go from memory. I was trying to read this. So anyway,
Uh,
my suspect Ted B. Braden winds up doing jobs for the mafia in the late '70s, early '80s, out of Pittsburgh, and it's called the LaRocca crime family. A guy named LaRocca was running the Pittsburgh mafia, and there was also a guy that so LaRocca kind of ages out in around 1983. Hopefully, I'm not screwing this up too bad. And a man named Genovese, and you'll notice that name, took over for Mr. LaRocca in Pittsburgh, running the mafia out of these small Italian restaurants, just like you see in The Sopranos. And they're really working out of bars in Pittsburgh, the mafia. And
mhm.
Mr. Genovese is like a cousin of the Genovese crime family. So it all ties in. It's fascinating. And my friend calling this out 2 years earlier was amazing, saying your guy's running jobs for the mafia. And we later find out for a fact he was running jobs for the mafia out of Pittsburgh. So in the 80s, my DB Cooper suspect is still looking for that adrenaline high and easy money. And he's getting phone calls at the bar at a place called Shaper's Lounge in the north side of Pittsburgh. Like the phone will ring, just like The Sopranos. And he's like, the mob boss will call and say, "Hey, I got a job for you. You need to go take these stolen goods." One of them was a bunch of whiskey, and like I think maybe Canadian whiskey, very high valuable stuff because he's driving an 18-wheeler. So he'll have like a whole 18-wheeler full of this Canadian whiskey, but he's running these jobs for the mafia out of Pittsburgh. So the guy's doing like very tricky stuff. And I'll screw up the line that he said, but he told a friend of his at the bar, because he was making this mafia easy money, and he would buy rounds of drinks for all these guys in northern Pittsburgh that were like, the steel workers that would get off work in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he would make comments like, "If you don't hear from me again, the boss got to me," meaning the mafia out of Pittsburgh. Like I made them mad and they snuffed me out. So it was amazing how my friend pegged that 2 years ago, that my suspect was later involved with the mafia. And we now can prove he was.
Wow.
So it's got amazing. DB Cooper now ties into the mafia.
Can you believe that?
At least in my perspective.
Just before I asked you, and you mentioned your
Now I can't hear you.
A guy named Timorpheus Wallet, who wrote DB Cooper died in 2007.
My suspect did. Now, I won't swear he was Cooper, and I wouldn't bet my life on it, but just based on the evidence that I've found through the years, I think he makes a very strong suspect. Another way to answer that question.
The guy from the comments actually wrote that DB Cooper died in 2007 before you told us who is your suspect.
So, that's amazing, because my suspect died in 2007, and I don't know who wrote that. I didn't see it, but I wasn't. I'll go back to the fact I wasn't on the plane, and nobody's going to prove it, even with DNA. So I think this case goes unsolved. It's very similar to Zodiac that I know you know very well, but this is the only DB Cooper suspect that now has mafia ties. I can tell you that, which would interest your people. So that's on You Should Not Know This, the podcast, and we go through. We haven't even touched DB Cooper yet. We're talking about what this guy's doing in the 80s, running jobs for the mafia. I just thought it was amazing how my friend in Boston, not even being from Boston, he grew up here with me in Houston, told me 2 years out, "Your guy's mafia." And then we find out later that he is. I mean, he called it 2 years. He's like, he's right. George, if you're listening, you nailed it, bro. Ted Braden was running jobs for the mafia out of Pittsburgh.
Wow. So if he was in DB Cooper, he survived for 30
Oh, yeah. I mean, DB Cooper's the kind of guy that did something really crazy, very daring. So you could see this guy. He was obviously after easy money. He asked for a $200,000 ransom. He survives. DB Cooper, like they say, only existed for about 2.5, 3 hours, because after the heist is over, he goes unknown. I mean, they call it the only unsolved American hijacking, which I think is interesting, because I've always believed the CIA knew. Now, my suspect is a really interesting guy. He was born in Toledo, Ohio in 1928. He joins to fight in World War II. At age 15, he's going to fight in World War II. Now, by the time he makes it over to Europe to fight in World War II, as part of the 101st Airborne Division, storied unit, paratrooper. And he turns 16 by the time he ceased fighting. After D-Day, he doesn't participate in D-Day because he missed it, but he participates in the Battle of the Bulge and all the battles like Bastogne surrounding the Battle of the Bulge at age 16. And he gets 2 Bronze Stars for valor. He's a 16-year-old kid. He's part of a subgroup of the 101st Airborne. I think it's the 2nd Battalion of the 501st Paratrooper Infantry Regiment. And if people have heard of that before, there's a unit called, that was in the TV show Band of Brothers, which also ran on HBO, like The Sopranos. And it was great TV show. And that's following Easy Company, which my suspect was also in Easy Company, but a different unit, but it's very similar to what Easy Company did in Band of Brothers is what this guy's doing. And there's one story that survives of him personally, my suspect, out of World War II. And it was him going to sneak out on his own at age 16 to the German listening post, where the German soldiers would go and, see where the enemy was. And he would go out there on his own at age 16 just to be closer to the action. This guy at age 16 was already seeking very high adrenaline, high, high heartbeat, high action, adrenaline seeking is what we call it. And at age 16, we already see that he's doing that. It's 16 years old. And of course, being in the Army in the 101st Airborne in a paratrooper regiment, he becomes probably the best skydiver in the history of the U.S. Army. He gets into a sport jumping team called the Golden Arrows, which is similar to what they call the Golden Knights today, but the Golden Arrows was more of a European team. It was made up of the 8th Division U.S. Army based out of Germany. And he's jumping with this sport team called the Golden Arrows. And I knew one of his good friends and teammates from the Golden Arrows. And they were doing sport parachute competitions all throughout Europe, Scotland, France, all over Europe, and this guy was winning every one of them hands down. They would like land on targets. They were doing baton tosses because in the U.S., sports skydiving really didn't take off to the early 70s. So these guys are doing it as part of the Army, sanctioned by the U.S. Army, but they're doing competitions as early as the 1960s, early 1960s, and he's winning them all. Like he is the best parachutist they've ever seen. He can land on a dime, he can free fall, he can do anything. And after he stops doing the competition stuff, he gets into the Black Ops unit in Vietnam, which is called military. It's called MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command, V for Vietnam, Studies and Observations Group. And that's very benign sounding, but that's the Black Ops guys in Nam. It's part of Special Forces, but it's the elite Special Forces. And these guys had a 20-year NDA when they joined this group in Vietnam, and they were not allowed to tell anybody about it. Their mother, their grandmother, because of the Geneva Convention, because we were inserting these guys over into Laos and Cambodia, where we were not supposed to be because of the Geneva Convention. So these guys went in sterile, no dog tags, nothing identifying them as American. They'd even eat indigenous foods. So when they went to the bathroom, the NVA, the North Vietnamese enemy, could not smell them on the trails. So these guys were getting dropped off into Laos doing the nasty stuff. And my suspect was what they call a 1-0 team leader in MACV-SOG, Team Colorado, or RT Colorado for recon team. What they would do, it's called going across the fence. And there's a SOG book called that, Across the Fence. That means they're being inserted into Laos and Cambodia, which we're not supposed to be there, right? But they knew we were there, going along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And they're doing things like finding enemy weapons caches and switching out the bullets with ones that'll explode. They're trying to rescue prisoners. They're doing high risk missions. And they said when you join this unit, you would either be killed or be given a Purple Heart, one or the other. And they had like one of the highest kill rates of any group in the history of the military. So that's how I, later become friends with a lot of these Green Berets. And that's where my suspect came from, because when this 20-year NDA burned off, where you couldn't talk about MACV-SOG, a gentleman named Snow, that goes under the name Snowman on the DB Cooper boards, and I know his real name, I won't say it. He tries to kind of lay low. And another friend of mine named Bruce Smith, we're looking into this guy as a DB Cooper suspect. So they asked all these surviving Black Op members of MACV-SOG, since DB Cooper it was a night jump, very difficult. They were asking these guys, who do you think could have been DB Cooper? And they all said Ted Braden. They never gave a second name. They all said Ted B. Braden. So that's where he comes from. He's not cherry picked. He comes from 5th Group Special Forces, Black Ops, MACV-SOG in Vietnam. Because even its legends, a guy named Billy Waugh, he's considered the godfather of U.S. Special Operations. 17 Purple Hearts, he's a legend. And then he later goes on to be a CIA Black Ops guy. Believed that Ted Braden was DB Cooper. He told me that on the phone before he passed away at age 94. And another guy named John Plaster, who's very well known in U.S. Black Ops Special Forces, still around, sniper expert. He believes Braden is DB Cooper. They don't ever say they have special knowledge of this, but they believe it firmly. And there was 1,300 guys or so that were in this Black Ops unit, and no one has ever given a second name for Cooper. So that's kind of the genesis of my suspect.
That's awesome. So, I mean, awesome story. If there was one guy who could have survived that storm over Seattle back in 1971, that was him.
Correct. No, Thanksgiving Eve, 1971, Portland to Seattle, and asked for the money. In Seattle, when the plane landed in Seattle, he let the passengers off. He let everybody off, but certain members of the crew in Seattle, and then he demanded 4 parachutes, 2 front, 2 back, and $200,000 in cash. And they brought it to him in a bank bag, and he had demanded a knapsack. And he was upset about this. This is where it gets really interesting.
I'm
So he
sorry to
let he
interrupt you. Please, can you take a look at the latest comment?
MacVisog guys were truly savages, chopped off RPK machine guns. Yeah, they were badasses. He's right. 20 grenades on them, etc. Yes, one guy killed like 7 guys with a knife in one night. I think you're talking about Dick Meadows. I'm not sure there. Yeah, he's saying how badass these guys were. My suspect was a 1-0 in MacVisog, which means he was a team leader. So I'm glad he brought that comment up because if you're a he, I don't know about your name, you could be a lady. So my apologies if you
A
are.
progressive overlord,
Huh?
definitely. Progressive overlord, so definitely you
Probably a
can.
dude. So anyway, yeah, it's these guys were total badasses. You know, the movie Rambo was based off of Audie Murphy. David Morrell that wrote it even told me that. And of course, Audie Murphy's a World War II guy. And we know Rambo was based on a Vietnam veteran played by Sylvester Stallone. And a
Mhm.
lot of people think that Mac V. Sog had a lot of influence on that because, you know, people already knew, even though the NDA was still in place after the fall of Saigon. But yeah, Ted was a 1-0 in the early days of SOG in 65 and 66. He was at, I think it was FOB 2, which was at Kontum, Vietnam. That was their forward operating base. And they were the early guys in SOG. And they were the early guys. So they were learning it as they went. I mean, high chance of death to join this unit. You had to be really not afraid to die to go join this group, and they did. And this guy was special. He had literally no fear of death. He would go into places like Laos and do crazy things. As the leader, he had what's called a starlight scope, and that's the earliest version of night vision. And it wasn't working while he was on a mission in Laos, and he smashed it on an open trail in Laos, and that's a no-no because the NVA is tracking you, and if they find you, they're not going to kill you. They're going to have fun with you and then kill you. And but he didn't care, so he smashes the device down on the ground. And later, I found out that he picks up the important electronics of it, and at least kept that. But he left, you know, shards of glass on an open trail. Well, that's crazy because they can find you. If those NVA trackers find that shattered glass, they know it's Americans, and they're going to come find you. So these teams were comprised of usually 3 Americans and then 4 what they call Indig, short for indigenous fighters, like there's ethnic tribes in Vietnam. Mainly one called the Montagnards, which is a French word for mountain people, and they would round out the team. And U.S. Special Forces would train these other 4 guys. So you basically had roughly 7-man teams that were inserted by helicopter when they went on these hair-raising, crazy missions, like your viewer stated. It was crazy, crazy stuff they did at night. Being hunted immediately as they hit the ground, heavy combat fire. I mean, the odds of being killed were tenfold over a regular infantry guy in Vietnam. So this is the hair-raising stuff for the guys that don't get scared easy. So that's the world he comes from. And he was old to be in this group already. He was about 37. As we know, DB Cooper was described as middle age, roughly 42, 43, 44 years old. Ted was 44 in 1971.
So the guy was 43 back in 1971.
I think he was, yeah, he's 43. That's right. I was only thinking 44. Yes, he was 43. Birthday in September. So yeah, in November of 71, I think he was 43.
Awesome story. Thank you very much. Can you now tell us your soprano story? The people
Oh
who.
God, yeah. You know, one of my sisters is on here, and which is good. It's not the other because I have 2. My ex brother-in-law was into racehorses, and he owned some fairly well-known thoroughbreds. I can't remember their names. And this is a story about him that I was told, and I mean, it's just what I was told, and if my other sister here could maybe back it up, but so it wasn't her husband, who I like a lot, and she's still married to. It was her old brother-in-law as well, and he supposedly poisoned one of his thoroughbreds for the insurance money. And people that know the TV show The Sopranos, there was an episode with a horse called Pyomine,
Yep.
who was sick and then eventually dies from a fire in the Sopranos episode. I was told that the writer that got that idea got it from my brother-in-law in real life. poisoning the racehorse for the insurance money was the genesis of that. And they got
Oh,
it from my brother-in-law doing that, who said the horse had colic. Now, horses do get colic and they die from that. But it was the whole idea of having a well-insured thoroughbred racehorse that would run in something like the Kentucky Derby being poisoned for insurance money. So I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling this with one of my other sisters on the live. Uh, that is what I was told, and the timelines fit when they wrote the Sopranos episode about Pyomine, which was obviously the name of the horse in the Sopranos.
it was October 2002, Pioneer.
Yeah, you know it well. I was told the genesis of that writing of the story came from my ex brother-in-law.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right?
We're pretty crazy, definitely. Oh,
Yeah. I mean, that's a wild story, I know, but that's what if you knew about the guy, and I won't say his name, it's even more believable. Yeah, he's deceased now, but yeah, I was told that's where they got the inspiration for that episode, what he did for the insurance money, because he said the horse had colic. We know Pyomine died for the fire, but I think Pyomine was sick before the fire.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She was sick practically all the time, and
Yeah,
probably running, and then Tony Soprano killed Ralph Cifaretto. I mean, he wanted to kill him all the time during the entire show,
yeah.
more or less. But Ralph said implicated himself pretty badly in the end by saying 100K each.
Yeah, my other sister just said truth is stranger than fiction. That's my sister just wrote that. My other sister. So that if that gives you some believability of that story, that there it is. My other sister just said truth is stranger than fiction.
Wow.
So yeah, and then, no, and then I was also going to tell you my Paul Sorvino story.
Paul Sorino, yeah.
I love Paul Sorvino.
Right.
I love.
If
I was
someone doesn't know who Paul Sorino is, it's Paulie from Goodfellas.
Polly from Goodfellas. Yes, Polly from Goodfellas, and I was a big fan of the movie Goodfellas. I love The Sopranos too. And I know a lot of people that were in Goodfellas also were in The Sopranos. Lorraine Bracco was one. Paul Sorvino was not. Paul Sorvino never had a cameo in The Sopranos, unfortunately. I wish he did. But I think about 4 or 5 people from
Well, David Chase, the show's
Goodfellas made it
creator,
to Sopranos.
actually told them in season one to quite a few people, including Frank Vincent, who played Billy Best in Goodfellas.
Yes,
You're too
yes,
famous for the show.
great actor.
My
Yeah.
favorite. I mean, this
Oh, yeah,
channel,
really?
it's his.
I liked him too.
Is the profile picture on this channel. Frank
Oh,
Vincent.
wow,
That's him.
wow.
As
I
Phil
love him
is
too.
the leader in season 5.
I love him too. I really do. And
Great was
so yeah, he's one of my favorites. So me and my cousin and my sister's watching it, Steve. We're really into Goodfellas. When we first saw that at the movie theater, we were just like, wow. I mean, I like The Godfather, but Goodfellas, man, oh, that's mafia, man. And Marty Scorsese did such a great job with that. And I'm sure you know the movie well as well. Martin Scorsese put his mother in the film, as you know, which was
Yeah, she was
Joe
playing Joe Pesci's
Joe
mother.
Pesci's mother. Joe
Yeah,
Pesci's mother. And remember, they have the picture of the dogs, and she's going, and Pesci says, "Yeah, one dog." And he goes, and she goes, "Look at my painting I painted." And she goes, and it's 2 dogs, right? And Pesci says, "Yeah, one dog's looking one way, one dog looks the other way. Yeah, it's great, ma. Whatever." And that's Marty Scorsese's real mother. That was such a great idea to put his own mom in there. His Italian mother was so awesome. I mean, that movie was just great, and it left an impact on me. So
First
love
time
Paul
I
Sor.
got Goodfellas, I hated. Uh, I hated Tommy so much. But Joe Pesci did a fantastic job as
Oh
always.
man, that part with Ray Liotta and where he's messing with him at the bar was
Yeah, but
so great, wasn't it? When he has him sweating, he goes, "You sweating?"
he stole every scene, and of course, he got the Academy Award for Best Supporting Character.
Pesci was unbelievable. I mean, they all were. I mean, Ray was great. God bless his soul. I way too young. Ray Liotta. I mean, playing Henry Hill, which is we know is a true story from the Lufthansa heist. There was a heist that Ted Braden, my Cooper suspect, was involved in that is very similar to the Lufthansa heist, not in terms of the dollars, because Lufthansa had some jewelry involved as well. But that's a big part of Goodfellas was the Lufthansa heist. And I'm trying to remember. The Percolator heist is what this one's called, that Braden was involved in out of the Pittsburgh Mafia, which is like a smaller version of the Lufthansa heist that's talked about in Goodfellas. But anyway, so I'm a huge fan of Goodfellas, by the way. And so is my cousin. So he was living in Los Angeles at the time after moving from New York City. And I'd lived in New York City for a couple summers because he was doing the gonna want to be an actor thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And his buddy moves out of New York City after doing off Broadway plays, as we called them, in some TV commercials, and they move out to L.A. to be, get more acting work, which basically means being a waiter till they call you. And
All right.
so
Please excuse me for a second. It's a phone call. I need to respond. I'm really
no, you're
sorry.
good. You're
Please.
good.
Sorry.
Get the papers. Get the papers. I love that comment. Get the papers. Get the papers. Or get that coffee to go.
All right.
I,
Sorry about that.
I was throwing around some Goodfellas lines. Somebody said, "Get the papers, get the papers." I love. I mean, that just put me in the mood for this. Also get that coffee to go.
Maybe 2 times. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, me and my cousins living in LA, trying to be an actor, and we go to a place called the Hollywood Athletic Club. Now, you hear the word athletic, you think it's a gym with like weights and stuff, like a gym, and
Mhm.
it's not a gym. I mean, that I can see. Maybe somebody knows if you're in LA. I didn't have time to look it up, but this is a pool hall. It's
Mhm.
shooting pool. And I don't know why it's called Hollywood Athletic Club. Maybe they had some weights in another room, but I didn't see it. It was this giant pool hall. People playing pool, drinking beer, shooting pool. So we went there to shoot pool. And I was like, okay, cool. We like to shoot pool. And we played 4 or 5 games, had, 2 or 3 beers. And my cousin said, I got to go to the bathroom. And so he walks down this long hallway in the back, and he's going to go to the bathroom. I'll wait till he gets back because I don't want him to miss this.
I need to charge the phone, unfortunately. So
Is this your phone?
I need to charge the phone. This one, the other
Oh
one.
man, I made the same mistake.
No.
I made the same mistake because I'm using this headset. I can't charge it at the same time. So, is it working?
Yeah, I just take too much. Just a second, please. To see what the problem. There shouldn't be any. All right. I'm going to disconnect this and put it here, and that's it. All right. Awesome.
You good?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're at Hollywood Athletic Club. It's a
Mm-hmm.
pool hall. What a weird name for a pool hall, but that's what it's called, Hollywood Athletic Club Pool Hall. And my cousin goes to the bathroom, and he comes back from the bathroom. We're still shooting pool, and he looks at me and he says, "Go to the bathroom." And I'm like, "I don't need to go." He says, "Go to the bathroom." And I'm like, I knew something was special, so I didn't even question him. So I was like, okay, something's going to happen if I go to the bathroom, right? So I walked down this long hallway to go to the bathroom at Hollywood Athletic Club. And there is Paul Sorvino sitting in a chair like this. He's got like a cigarette or something. He's on a payphone that's mounted to the wall right by the men's room. And he's talking like he's right out of Goodfellas. And he's like, I got to get the thing. I got to go do the thing and get the thing and get the papers or whatever. He's doing like the Goodfellas thing almost. And I'm standing 3 feet from Paul Sorvino sitting in the chair. And I'm looking like I'm in the movie. And I'm like, holy cow, it's Paul Sorvino doing like a Goodfellas bit. And I'm like, wow, holy crap. And he looks at me and he kind of waves with his left hand. And I think he's going to chew me out. And he points at me. He waves his hand at me. I'm 3 feet from Paul Sorvino sitting in a chair with a payphone in his right. And he kind of does this at me. And I thought he was going to chew me out. And he goes, how you doing? How you doing? Or something like that. And I went back to my cousin. I was like, whoa, I just saw Paulie sitting in a chair on a payphone. Like I had just walked into the movie Goodfellas. I mean, he's literally, Servino's on the phone at Hollywood Athletic Club, nobody near us. And I'm 3 feet away looking at him like an idiot that I am. And he's like, I got to go think about the thing, and he's doing the whole mafia line, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I got to see him about the thing. And he looks at me and I think he's going to chew me out. He just goes, how you doing? And it's just like, what an experience, man. I mean, for a guy that loved him and loves the movie to walk up on Servino, I just knew when my cousin said, go to the bathroom, it was going to be special, and it was.
Awesome. Cool. I'm happy for you because you're such a fan of. Yeah, last time I watched him in that series, Bad Blood, Canadian Sopranos. Well, the so-called Canadian Sopranos. It was an interesting series, but season 2 sucked. So based on the
I heard about that.
result of crime family from Montreal.
I heard something about that.
Oh.
The Canadian version.
It's just the 6 episode season 1, and season 2 is something total different. So I don't know. This thing that was the last time I saw him acting anywhere before he died. So many people died in 2022, 2022.
Oh, it was yeah, it was like an epidemic.
So many actors, so many everyone. I mean,
So many talented. I have one more other mafia story, which is really wild. And here in Houston, Texas, I mentioned to you, they have a lot of people from the Witness Protection Program. That's true. I don't know how they wind up here. Why? Maybe because we're so far removed from like Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania and New York City and New Jersey that some of these Witness Protection Program guys wind up down here in Houston. So there was always a rumor that they had these underground gambling joints. And my friend was plugged into that because he was half Sicilian on his mother's side and knew these guys. And he would tell me about it, and I thought he was kind of full of it. And he was like, no, man. He goes, these are real mobsters, like from Witness Protection Program, like some come up from New York. He said they're not all on it, but some of these are, they're wise guys, like literally wise guys, And I was like, yeah, right, whatever, bro. You're full of it. And so he says one day he calls. We have like a weekly poker game back in the day in the Heights in Houston, Texas. And he calls me and says, you remember those underground mafia games I told you about? And I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, the ones that don't exist. He said, you want to go to one? And I was like, are you kidding me? And he goes, no, I'm not kidding. You want to go to one and play? And I was like, hell yeah. And, because I wanted to see if he was, full of it or not. So he takes me to this Italian restaurant on a street in Houston near downtown, and it's a small Italian restaurant. It's already 11 at night. The main dining room's already closed. The bar's already closed, and he walks me into this bar, and two people are like cleaning up, and he walks to this door in the back with me behind him. It's a true story, and he does a special knock on the door, like a special 3 knocks and then pause and another knock, and the door opens. And they walk in, and it's like a scene out of The Sopranos. I'm not kidding. In Houston, Texas, these guys are all mafiaed out. They're wearing suits. They've got guns tucked in their waist belts. There's 2 rented blackjack tables. There's a craps table, and more importantly, there is a table called what's called over and under, and it's literally made like in someone's garage out of plywood. And these Italian mafioso types are obsessed with this game called over and under. And it's different than craps. From what I know, you're just rolling the dice. And if it's over 7, you get paid. And if it's under 7, you lose your money. It's something basic like that. And the dice are like the size of your palm. They're not little, the little ivory dice, and they're not even the Vegas dice, like the red ones that are rubbery. These are the size of your palm. And the over and under table is like, I don't know, 5 feet wide, and it has an edge around it that will catch the dice. And you roll one at a time. because they're so big. Only your hand can only fit one, not two. And you throw it and hit the wall of the little table, and you see if you get seven or not. And these Italian dudes are like have wadded up $100 bills all over the perimeter of the inside of the table. And I was like, whoa, he was telling the truth about these games. And these were serious looking wise guys. And I'm like, my mind is blown. And he looks at me because he knows these dudes or some of them. He goes, hey, Drew, he goes, you want to roll? Meaning, usually that means you want to leave. But what he meant was you want to roll the dice in the over and under. And you got these mafioso looking dudes. And I'm like, hell no, man. I was like, if I roll and somebody bust out, you're gonna whack me. And he goes, hey, don't say that word. Don't say the word here. He goes, you'll get in trouble. So don't worry about it, And he just went along. But literally, these games existed, and they were underground in Houston, and they had a larger version of one that I didn't go to that our police chief actually got caught playing in. His name was Sam Nucci, and he was from Beaumont, Texas, but of course he's of Italian descent. His name was Nucci, and he was a tall guy, very Italian looking. He got caught when he was the police chief of Houston, Texas, playing in a similar underground Italian gambling operation. And that was multi decades ago. But our police chief got caught in one of these games. I wasn't at that game. I was at a smaller one. But apparently, my friend, and I even got a photo of us back in the day. You can see we're wearing fedora hats. We were into all that kind of stuff. And we had a weekly poker game. It's my friend Andy. He's the half Italian guy that knew these dudes. And it was true. Yeah, they had these underground games of these Italian mobsters. And they were like obsessed with over and under. I'm like, $100 bills wadded up, like, yeah, we're gonna roll, yeah, snake eyes, and all this crazy mob stuff. And I was like, holy crap, it exists. I was just scared I was gonna get popped just for being there, But we spent about an hour, got the hell out of there, and I was like, I'll never question you again, Andy.
We have a question for you. Did you watch Irishman, the movie, and what do you think about that Sheeran guy who claims that he killed Jimmy Hoffa? I think he was full of shit.
I don't know. The guy that claims he killed Hoffa?
Yeah, Ed Sheeran.
God, that's interesting because Hoffa's coming up so much lately. I'm not sure. I always was of the belief that Hoffa, the story about Hoffa being killed and being buried under Giant Stadium, because the timeline lines up with that. And I don't remember where that comes from, that story about when Hoffa goes missing, and they buried him under Giant Stadium, because I think that comes out of the Irish, that story about him being buried when they were pouring the concrete for Giant Stadium. So I need to go look at that as far as that claim. But when we talk about the Irish Mafia, which is so interesting now because the first movie ever made about the Irish Mafia was not true. It was loosely based on the real Irish Mafia, which was called the Westies. And I was really into that.
My fellow serve Borko ran Westies at one point.
Yes, and I knew it well.
Really?
You know how long I've owned this?
I can't see what it says. Westies?
It says Inside Hell's Kitchen Irish Mob. The Westies. TJ English, the Westies. This is the real story about the Irish Mafia in Manhattan, in Hell's Kitchen, New York, which is a neighborhood, of course, in New York City. Now it's called Clinton. I've owned this book for like 30 years. That's my original copy. You can see how old it is. Now they're making the real story of this book now. They're making it with the guy on the Farmers commercials is playing the head of the Irish mob. They're making this into a real TV series now, and I just found out 2 weeks ago. And I told my cousin who bought me this book about the real Irish Mafia, holy cow, they're finally making the real story of the Irish Mafia from Hell's Kitchen, New York. That's based on this book. And they had a movie about the Irish Mafia years ago called State of Grace. And Sean Penn was in it, and Gary Oldman, great actor, Gary Oldman. But it was loosely based on this book because they I guess, didn't make a deal with Mr. English to use the real story that he researched. Guys like Jimmy Coonan that were in the Irish Mafia. So now they are making the real story. State of Grace was a great movie, but it's fictional. The Westies is real. It really happened, and it's in this book. And they are now making this into a TV series with We Are Farmers guy. I can't remember his name. We Are Farmers. That you know, here in America, people know that guy was also an actor in a HBO series called Oz about a prison. What is his
I
name? I
watched
can't
those
remember.
3 times. So who did he play in those?
He's playing. I think I can't remember. He's playing the Don, you know, of the Irish Peak guys. Shoot, what is
Riley,
his name?
Ryan O'Reilly, you know.
You know, the names I remember because of the whole story. The two head guys that were in all the action with the Irish Mafia was a guy named Jimmy Coonan and Mickey Featherstone. Those
Mhm.
were the guys that were the street guys that were doing all the, you know, the shakedowns and getting involved in the fights with the Italian mafia out of Hell's Kitchen. Of course, they were bumping up against the Italian mafia a lot, and that's all, you know, talked about in this book. And the actor is playing the you know the main Don. You know, for I know that's the Italian mafia language, but he's playing that role, the leader of the Irish mob. Ed Harris played that part in State of Grace, but that actor, I think it's TJ something, the guy that's in the Farmers commercials, that was in Oz,
The
great
leader of
actor.
Irish Mafia in Oz, his name was Ryan O'Reilly. The character played by what was his name? Dean Winters. Dean Winters.
I don't remember. I'm not sure who's playing who because I know they're working on this. I don't even know if it's come out yet, but it is going to be based on this book, which is real, the real story of the Irish mob, which will be Coonan and Featherstone were the two main players. And I just don't know who's playing who yet. There was also a character, I can't remember his name, like in the real Irish Mafia, that looked just like the actor Matt Dillon. And I think they called him Dillon or something because he looked so much like the actor Matt Dillon. But Coonan and Featherstone are the names I remember the most in this story about the real Irish mob. But now they are making this into a real series, which I'm stoked about because I've had this book for decades and I was really interested in that. They used to plan their hits and stuff at a place called the Skyline Motor Inn in Hell's Kitchen, New York. I think the streets were 54th and 10th in Manhattan. And I lived in Greenwich Village, so I would go to the Skyline Motor Inn and drink and ask the old timers if they remember Jimmy Coonan or Mickey Featherstone. And I met a guy that claimed to have known Featherstone. So I was just like, whoa, you know, it was cool because I was so into the Irish mob. And so the Skyline was still open when I lived in New York years ago. And it's probably gone now. You know, it's just old school. Probably tore the building down. Who knows? But a lot of the old timers were still around when I was living in Greenwich Village, which wasn't real far from Hell's Kitchen.
All right. So we have. Are how can I ask Drew a question just right here, and I will ask him or he will see. Very simple. All right. So we have a question from
Oh,
Sirius.
don't forget Zodiac. He just said Zodiac, dude. That's why you even contacted me. I almost forgot. We have so much in common. We didn't even get to the meat. We didn't even get to the meat, Borko, because we have so much in common.
Yeah. Did the copycat just randomly get lucky when he was killing the people with different zodiac signs?
Oh, the copycat. Are you talking
Not
about?
from New York.
You're not talking about Eddie Zeta, right? The New York Zodiac killer.
Well, Sirius
That's
is from
Eddie
Brooklyn.
Zeta.
Sirius is from Brooklyn, so he probably thinks about the
The New
guy
York
from.
Zodiac. There's one called the New York Zodiac. His name was Eddie Zeta.
Yeah. That guy.
It could have been Eddie Zeta. Yeah, I know that case pretty well. Of course, he's a copycat. Yes, Eddie was inspired by the real Zodiac. Eddie, it was different in the fact he uses what's called zip guns, which some of you guys might know being Sopranos fans, which are basically a little homemade gun called a zip gun. There used to be a swing band that had a song called Zip Gun Bop. I think that was Roll Crown Review. I mean, that's old mobster looking dressing guys listening to 30 swing music, but it kind of made a resurgence with a movie called The Swingers, but just Swingers. And Eddie Zeta was a really nasty guy. He always wanted to get into the military and they wouldn't let him in. He had a lot of mental problems. He was inspired by the Zodiac, but he didn't really carry things out like the real Zodiac killer. He used zip guns. He got caught. He got caught because his sister's boyfriend was making trouble, and I think Eddie was fighting him, and it alerted police to his house, and that's when the police found the zip guns and were able to tie him into the New York Zodiac murders with this trouble that he had with his sister's boyfriend, got him caught. But he was really kind of just a total loser. You know, he couldn't get into the military. He just didn't. He couldn't. He was struggling at life. He couldn't, make enough money. He was always struggling. So I think he killed people just for attention, like the real Zodiac. And it's just a sad case with Eddie Zeta. And the similarities with the real Zodiac are very few. He is a copycat, but I think the real Zodiac had a fairly high IQ, unlike Eddie. Eddie was kind of below average to me, and got caught. So it's an interesting story with Eddie Zeta.
So you
But
think
he was a
Don
young guy
Chaney has
too.
a high IQ?
Yeah, yeah. That's a strange copycat in Eddie Zeta.
No, I said so you think Don Chaney had a high IQ?
I think Don Chaney has a pretty high IQ. I do. Of course, that's my Zodiac killer suspect or person of interest because, like I said, like with Cooper, I wasn't on the plane and I wasn't at Lake Berryessa. I know the case very well. I'm a case expert on Zodiac and Cooper. And Don Chaney was a smart guy. He comes off as very blue collar, is what we call it, which just means you're a working man in the United States. Don Chaney was a mechanical engineer, very smart, knew mathematics well.
Hmm.
He went to Cal Poly Pomona, which is part of the Cal Poly system. They also have one in San Luis Obispo where Arthur Lee Allen went for some education classes. Arthur Lee Allen was actually fairly smart, believe it or not. And Don Chaney goes to Cal Poly Pomona after going to the Air Force, which is important. Um, and that is Cal Poly is an advanced college. It's not quite an MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's not quite that, but it for postgraduate work, it's higher level. It's for pretty smart people that want to be engineers and the heavy mathematical trades. So he goes to Cal Poly Pomona for at least 3 years, and that's where he meets Santo Panzarella and Ronald Allen. So that's how Don Chaney winds up being friends with Arthur Lee Allen, the prime suspect in Zodiac, is because Don met his Arthur Lee Allen's younger brother Ronald Allen at Cal Poly Pomona. So that's how that story
Yeah.
starts at Cal Poly.
Donald Lee Cheney. I don't know if he was smart. I mean, probably he was smart for his job,
He's pretty
but
smart.
the way he
And
implicated
here's why I
himself.
know. How I know? Because he had to take certain exams for the Air Force, and I have
No,
all the
that's okay.
grades. Yeah, he's a pretty smart
You're
guy.
smart for his profession. The way that he
Uh,
implicated himself in the
oh yeah,
case.
he was a mechanical engineer. He's a mechanical
The
engineer,
way he
professional mechanical
implicated
engineer.
himself in the Zodiac case, I mean, it's not very smart.
You mean the Zodiac himself, based on what you see?
No, I meant the way Cheney implicated himself in the case. That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
very
You know
smart.
what? Well, it's not, but he does it for a reason. He does it to taunt. Because he knows he can get away with it, and guess what? He did. When you watch, his name was Arthur Lee Allen, which is a documentary about Arthur Lee Allen that came out in
Mhm.
conjunction with the David Fincher film called Zodiac. They made that, and also the first documentary called "This Is the Zodiac Speaking." Now they made a second one with that same name, which blows my mind. They would allow that name to be used again on that trash, about the sea waters. Oh my God! Don't even get me
Yeah.
started. And I know you
Uh,
don't even want to go there, and I don't either. But
no,
they named that the
no.
same name, which is confusing to a newbie. And I'm not a newbie, but the new person's like, wait, which is the one, But with the movie came two documentaries with the movie. His name was Arthur Lee Allen, and This Is the Zodiac Speaking, which was a very in-depth documentary that featured Brian Hartnell. It had all the living police officers that were involved were in that documentary. Hartnell even did a cameo in the movie. But when you watch, his name was Arthur Lee Allen, and watch Don Chaney in that video documentary. That's two uploads on YouTube. One of them just hit 1 million views. You can see when Cheney tells a story how he kind of grins after everything he says. Like he shyly kind of goes, after everything he says because it's such BS. But he is highly intelligent. He just did not. He made one crucial error that no one really caught, which is when he changes his story. He changed his timeline about Arthur Lee Allen. Of course, Cheney is why Arthur Lee Allen is the prime suspect in the Zodiac killer's
Yep.
murders. But when you look at Don Cheney as an individual, he's got probably better circumstantial evidence for being the Zodiac than Allen alone, in my opinion. Startling circumstantial evidence for Cheney. And on top of his bizarre behavior, the way he acts, I don't think he's being stupid when he's taunting. He's doing it because he's getting off on it, and he knows he's not going to get caught. And guess what? He wasn't. He's doing this in full view of people because he thinks he's intellectually superior. Because frankly, he was. He got away with it. He's that smart. He was smart enough to taunt it and get away with it, and he did. I mean, maybe he just got lucky. Like Presidio Heights, it looked like he almost got caught that night, and
Yeah,
I
but
really believe that was the end of the murders.
can you imagine this Presidio Heights? He got caught. Let's say
He got
that Donald Falk caught him,
yeah,
and
Falk,
the late Eric Zelms caught him. Let's
Falcon
say
Jones, correct?
just just hypothetically, he gets caught. Zodiac never gets discovered anyway. So because he wouldn't confess, of course he wouldn't.
That's an interesting thought. Um, of course, maybe he gets caught if they don't make that mistake where they initially put out over the radio, as you know, that they were looking for an African American suspect.
Yeah,
Now, if they didn't do that, they would have caught on to the man walking in the Presidio that night. But they were looking for a dark gentleman that was African American.
yeah.
Uh, if not for that mistake, I say he probably gets caught. So yeah, that
Mhm.
was sloppy, and I think that was probably
We
scared him
don't
enough
know
to stop.
So if Zodiac, we wouldn't know it was Zodiac because there is no way he would have confessed.
True, and then
According
the
to
shirt, and then the pieces of the shirt never get mailed. Stein's bloody
it's
shirt.
true, that's true. Because it wasn't his MO
It
until that
wasn't his
murder.
MO. You're right.
There was
You're right.
nothing
That's an
connecting
interesting
him to the
thought.
case.
That's an
Yeah,
interesting thought. And I was told by an insider from SFPD that Falk was really scared. Like, a lot of people don't believe Falk's, description or even exact story, but I was told that Falk was really scared, that he was afraid of retribution or whatever. From his description of who he saw, because Falk's description said he saw a guy that was about
yeah,
5'10", barrel chested. Very important for me. He literally used the description barrel chested
yeah. I know. We
of the
don't
man
see
he
it too.
saw, and I love that because barrel chested is not real common. That's like a common stockiness that Cheney had. He said the man was wearing glasses. He did so. Falk, as you know, never had any input in the Presidio Heights sketch. That sketch was later amended. That was done by Lindsay Robbins. Of course, Lindsay Robbins had the most input of the sketch because he was at home looking through a second-story window at the post murder of Paul Stein in his cab. And Lindsay, I think, was 13 at the time. Lindsay's a really interesting guy, and I know a lot about him. He's since deceased.
Lindsay Robbins was 16 at the time.
Yeah, he was 16. Okay, he was with his sister and his
He
other
was
brother.
13. He was 13. Yeah,
13, yeah, okay. You're right. Lindsay was 16. And then, of course, that BS story comes out later about Lindsay moving the body. That's bullshit.
yeah,
Sorry, that's bullshit. That never happened. You remember hearing that story how Lindsay ran down there and moved Stein's body? That's
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah. I mean,
I actually contacted one of Lindsay's kids trying to vet that out, and he wouldn't write me back. I know who his children are. Um, they're around. His two sons. Lindsay had two sons, and they're around. I think he had a daughter as well, but his
it's
two sons are
unfortunate
still
that he
alive and
died.
live in San Francisco.
But the other cop, Eric Zelms, he tried
Zelms.
everything. They say that he tried everything with the sketch. He was sharing it on the street to everyone. Did you see this person, this person, this person?
I
He
remember
was
some of that.
he
I
did
know Falk did look at the sketch and basically agreed with it.
Yeah, but Eric Zelms, he was really. I saw that his wife, because Eric Zelms got killed 3 months later in
That's
a
true.
random moment.
Very,
And
yeah. I mean, yeah,
he,
it makes you
he
conspiracy
robbed,
minded.
but he really dedicated his time to finding the person that turned out to be Zodiac, because he felt, I don't know if this is true, but according to his wife, he felt immense guilt that they had the Zodiac but didn't arrest him.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
because of the mess up with the African American
yeah,
ID.
but it wasn't
Yeah,
his fault. And he was going all over the San Francisco and sharing the sketch of the man they thought it was that was the Zodiac actually. During
right.
those 3 months that he lived after the murder, so completely different
I heard
approach
that. I heard that as
than
well.
a completely different approach than the one that Donald Falk had.
Yeah, Falk was someone told me that knew him that he was petrified. I mean, literally petrified of the whole thing. And that was an insider from SFPD told me that he was knew Falk, said he was a good man, but he was petrified. And remember, Falk also said this, but I don't know if it was. I think it was in This Is the Zodiac Speaking, which was, of course, filmed much later than when this happened in 1969. But he described Zodiac as having a widow's peak,
Little stick,
where
yeah.
the hairline was here, the hair was here, but it was balding here. That's what and he says. I don't know what it's really called, but my parents called it a widow's peak, and that was a big deal. Of course, Cheney had a widow's peak. I know I'm being self-serving there, but Falk was adamant about the widow's peak, adamant. But
And
you're
Don
right.
Cheney got a
Zelms
little
and
stick.
Falk did not really see eye to eye. You're right.
Yeah, and the third cop, Calicetti, he wasn't
Yeah,
very fond.
Kyle said it.
This is only speaking Armand Calicetti.
Yes, I don't think
He
he was
wasn't
in
very
it.
fond of anything
I don't.
that had to do with Donald Falk.
Right. Yeah, I knew there's a lot of I don't know what you would call it. Maybe not hate, but I guess skepticism about Falk's entire story. And I was just told that was because he was so scared. But it didn't really change much from the original description to This is the Zodiac Speaking, from what he claims he saw that night. Is going up to the door and it's just it's such a missed opportunity. But he seems really believable to me in the documentary. But that's all I'll say. But yeah, he says things favorable to my theory. But he is a little strange. But who isn't? Look at Hoffman from Blue Rock Springs. That guy's as weird as they come. There's just so many weird characters in the police alone in this case. Because Hoffman alone is a
This
strange
guy
guy.
was grandson claimed to be the Zodiac 2 years ago.
The grandson,
Richard
correct.
Hoffman. Yeah, I remember
Richard
that. Yeah.
Hoffman, yeah, Richard Hoffman, because Hoffman rode in the ambulance with Darlene Ferrin, of course, as you know, and he was
Uh-huh.
trying to question her, but she was dying. Mike survives, as we know, and Darlene dies on the way to the hospital, and Hoffman rides with her, and he said something creepy like if she was trying to breathe, as she was actually dying, that he could see her like bra strap move. So it was a real creepy thing to say. They didn't do him any favors. And then there was the rumors that Hoffman either dated Darlene or knew her, and he emphatically denies ever knowing her. So we just don't know, but he's a really strange guy. Like you said, his grandson did a TikTok video claiming that his grandfather was the Zodiac to get some clicks. He doesn't know the case at all. Unfortunately, I didn't help him. He didn't even know the basics of the case, so that hurts. If you're going to accuse your grandfather of being the Zodiac, at least get some cursory knowledge, bro. And he didn't. So he didn't really help himself, but he got a lot of views in a short period of time. No one gave him some Netflix contract. And that's another thing. Nobody gets rich doing this stuff. Writing about Zodiac, DB Cooper. Holy crap. I could saw DB Cooper and Zodiac tonight, and I still got to go to work in the morning, okay? No one's getting rich on this stuff. That's what's so funny that people believe that. You don't get rich doing this. Trust me.
I trust
I ain't quit my day job. But anyway, it's he did it for clicks.
Well, I
You know,
think that there
Hoffman's
is one
interesting. Hoffman is
person.
interesting.
I think there is one person that we both know who he is that
Oh, we
think that
know.
he would get very rich from discovering who is the Zodiac. Not discovering.
But you really won't. You know, it's kind of like Golden State Killer. The most successful book ever written about the Golden State Killer was written before he was identified. It's called Gone After Dark by Michelle McNamara, and it did very well. It's a very well written book, and that's when they started calling him the Golden State Killer, which we of course later
That's
find
the
out is
woman who
Joseph
died in
D'Angelo.
2016.
Yeah,
That's the woman who died
yeah,
in 2016. Yeah, yeah, I
correct.
remember. That's sad
So
story. Sad.
you know, now that we know it's Joe D'Angelo, which everybody thought on Golden State that he either died or was in prison because he just stopped killing and raping. Well, he didn't. He just literally moved into a neighborhood and as far as we can tell, didn't do any more murders. And he was just the asshole neighbor. But he didn't stop. You know, he did just stop. As far as we know, D'Angelo just stopped. And I think that's what the Zodiac did. And no, I don't think D'Angelo's the Zodiac. Sorry, somebody out there. Joe D'Angelo is not the Zodiac killer. That's a terrible theory. Terrible.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, no way.
He's too
No way.
young, number one. He's too young, number one, to be Zodiac, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
he
He's
would
way
have
too
to
young.
be 22 years old at
At
the
least at
time.
Lake Herman.
Like Herman Rowe, 22.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
no,
D'Angelo's
no.
just too young. He's way, you know, the Zodiac was more about the fear, you know, than raw violence. And of course, as we know, and you know, Zodiac didn't rape anybody. He had Cecilia right there under his power and did, and very attractive young college girl, didn't do anything sexually to her. Where Joe D'Angelo was a power killer, what they call a power killer, and a
Yeah,
rapist. No one
yeah,
touched Cecilia. No one raped Darlene Ferrin. Uh, Joe D'Angelo is not the Zodiac killer.
definitely not. And also, Arthur Lee Allen was a sexual deviant in
Yes,
many ways, and
absolutely.
he doesn't fit that
No,
uh, at all.
he doesn't fit it at
Because
all.
Collier didn't sexually harass any of his victims,
No,
nothing like
and
that.
he was into small children. You know, he was into more
Yeah,
not like little babies, but he got caught for fondling two 13-year-old boys. And I think the one that he got the prison sentence for in Atascadero was one of those cases. And interesting what, when you know the files well, is what happened with Alan fondling these young boys was he was giving them beer and drugs or whatever at his trailer in Santa Rosa. And basically told these boys after he fondled them was don't tell your mom. You know, that's all he said. He didn't say, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to go kill your mother. I'm going to kill your little sister. I know where she goes to school. He never did that. And that was confirmed by two different boys he did it to. He simply told them, don't tell your mother or you'll be in trouble. Something very benign. You know, if he's the Zodiac, you think he would have said, I'm going to kill you. You know, I'm going to, if you
Drew. Hey, something's going on. Not on my part. I have a bee on my head. I hope Drew will be back soon. I don't know what's going on. It's not this time. It's not my fault. No, I'm just smoking out of habit. It's not Johnny Sack kind of smoking. Let's see what happened with Drew. Should be able to come back. He has the link. Whoa. Oh Oh, sorry, Drew lost the signal. He can't connect anymore. Unfortunately.
I had a low,
Here you are.
I had a low back.
I thought we lost you. I thought we lost you
Yeah,
for good.
it was my fault. I had a low signal because I was using that headset. But yeah, it
I
was
thought we
interesting
lost you
about
for good.
Alan. That's where we left off with Alan and the kids. So yeah, that Alan, as you remember, in his name was Arthur Lee Allen. They had the lady profiler, Pagini. I can't remember her name. It was hyphenated, and I think it
Yeah,
later
she
changed.
said that
But
Zodiac wasn't. That she doesn't think that Alan was the Zodiac because
right,
uh,
she thinks it was. She thinks the Zodiac was an age appropriate heterosexual male,
yeah,
which would
yeah,
rule
yeah,
Allen
yeah.
out. Which would rule Allen out. And there's still a lot of Arthur the Allen's still the prime suspect today. And what was interesting, and you and I talked about offline, was that Brian Hartnell, the Zodiac victim from Lake Berryessa, went to Ace Hardware in Vallejo on Tennessee Street to engage with Arthur Lee Allen because Arthur Lee Allen was working the Ace Hardware. So they just sent Brian in there on his own to buy something at the hardware store from Allen to hear his voice. Because when Brian, of course, as you know, engaged with the Zodiac, he spoke with him and knows his voice, but couldn't see his face because Zodiac's wearing that infamous hood, the black hood over his face. He described it as like black clip-on glasses, and of course, it had the infamous cross circle logo that the Zodiac used. Um, so they sent Brian to interact with Arthur Lee Allen working at the Ace Hardware on Tennessee Street. So Brian goes in there and I don't know if he buys some small tool or something, a screwdriver from Allen, but he says emphatically that Allen was not the man he experienced at Berryessa. Didn't sound like him, didn't
Yeah,
have anything like him. And what's interesting too that comes up a lot is Brian Hartnell is 6'7", extremely tall guy. That's why he didn't want to give a height description of Zodiac because he said for when you're 6'7", everybody's down. You know, when you're
yeah,
that tall, that's like an NBA forward. He's 6'7". My daughter likes that. There's some sick joke about 6'7". She'll play that. Dad, you said 6'7". but he did interact, and this comes up again. And I need to send you the link to an issue called Riverside Lawyer Magazine.
sorry for
Brian
the
Hartnell is
interruption.
still a lawyer.
Do you know or do you remember what did Gray Smith wrote? What did he write in his book about the Zodiac Killer and Alan's encounter with Brian Hartnell?
I I don't remember. I mean, the most I recall is Brian bringing that incident back up in the article in Riverside Lawyer magazine, which is the Tri Cities down there where he lives, which isn't very far from Riverside, where Sherry Joe Bates was murdered, which I don't believe is Zodiac. But I can't remember exactly what Graysmith said because we know that Graysmith
I'll tell you.
played
So
hard and fast with the truth.
Alan sees Brian Hartnell and says, "Oh my God, you're supposed to be dead," and runs
Oh, that
out
never
of the
happened.
scene.
That never happened. Brian would tell you that. Brian Hartnell would tell you that never happened. That's Graysmith framing his
That's
suspect.
Gray Smith at his best.
According to Hartnell, Allen didn't react at all. And if Allen's the Zodiac, he's either completely crazy or doesn't recognize him. And it's hard not to recognize a guy that's 6 feet 7 inches tall. When he approaches you, Allen's 6 feet tall. You're like, even at 6 feet, you're like, oh shit, it's him. Because of course, Zodiac could see Brian and Cecilia. But that's more what I somehow I got credit for coming up with this. I don't know why, but I guess I'll take it. A term called gray smithing, and I'm credited for this term. I don't even know why. I don't even remember coming up with it. But grace smithing means playing with the truth, and I'm credited for coming up with that because Robert Graysmith had a way of playing with the truth. Here's another one you'll like that came from Graysmith. It's total BS. That they found a pair of Wing Walker shoes at Allen's house. Of course,
Yeah,
Wing
yeah.
Walkers was the Berryessa print, right? Arthur
Uh-huh.
Lee Allen never owned a pair of Wing Walkers. That's pure bullshit. That's more graysmithing. Oh, also this infamous paint party. You know about the paint party at Darlene's?
Yes, I know. I
Never
know. I
happened.
know.
I'll
Never
bet the
happened.
farm that there was no paint party. Never even happened. There is
What
no
about
paint
the
party.
one when he says that uh, when Alan's father died in 1966, that triggered him and to become the Zodiac?
Nah, that way didn't die. You know, Alan's father, I don't think died till the early 70s. It was a Navy
He
pilot,
died in
Ethan Warren Allen.
1971.
Ethan Warren Allen, yeah, he was a flight pilot, Navy pilot,
No, no, no. But
accomplished.
Gray
He had
Smith
died of
said
prostate cancer.
in 1971,
I think it was later than 66. Maybe not. I
five
know he
years
died of
later,
prostate
5
cancer.
years later, 5 years in 1971. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm thinking about Alan's father. Yeah, I know a lot about him.
No, no, no. He died for sure in 1971.
Okay, I thought
Yeah.
you said 66. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
That
I thought you
said,
said 66.
Gray Smith said that Alan was triggered by his father's death in
You know,
1966 and became the
that
Zodiac.
could be true. You know, his father was very accomplished, and his father, of course, flew fighter planes for the Navy, and he got in a bad airplane crash while as a pilot, and he was never the same after that wreck. He could not control the household after that wreck. So Alan's mother became a little more domineering after that, because after Ethan Warren Allen got in that plane wreck as a pilot, he never fully recovered from the wreck. He becomes a drafter for the city of Vallejo, and eventually passes away from prostate cancer in 1971.
Yeah, but Gray Smith totally made up.
Oh
The,
yeah, he's a liar. I mean, he
he,
made up a lot. He didn't
I
get
mean,
everything wrong, but he played fast and loose with the truth. Yes.
he had to know that Alan's father didn't die in 1966. He had to know
Right.
that.
It's seven. Okay, that's the point you're making. Okay, I get. You're right.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
Good
no,
point.
no way.
Great point.
That's not. Oh, he just. I don't know.
Yeah, the
I have.
poor man was a shell of
I
himself,
just
though.
have to comment. I mean, the man is a pathological liar. He was.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the best place that exposes the Robert Graysmithing, or Graysmithing as I call it, is Michael Butterfield's website.
Oh yeah,
He goes through it line by line, like I think he calls it fact versus Fincher, meaning
yeah.
David Fincher, the filmmaker, who had reservations about making the film Zodiac because he didn't trust Don Chaney. That's a fact. And to carry this further, Robert Graysmith's last contribution to Zodiac is called Shooting Zodiac, and it's about the experience of making the film with Fincher. And this is very interesting that he writes about in that book. Now it could be BS too, because we know he lies, but I don't think he lied about this. So he sets up a meeting between Santo Panzarella, Cheney's old friend from Cal Poly, who he lived with Ronald Allen, Arthur Lee Allen's younger brother. And they set up a meeting, you know, decades later between Santo Panzarella and Donald Lee Cheney in Los Angeles to talk about Arthur Lee Allen. And I don't know what year this is, but it's written in Shooting Zodiac by Robert Graysmith. But he says Cheney walks into this office building conference room, and
Mhm.
Sandy Panzarella is there. He goes by Sandy. His real name's Santo.
I know. I know.
And he says he recognizes Don Chaney immediately, and he says, "Hey Don, how you been? I haven't seen you in a long time." And Don Chaney looks at Panzarella and he's like, "Who are you?" He's honestly acting like he doesn't know who Sandy Panzarella is, who was not only his best friend in college, but he worked for him at Science Dynamics for years when Sandy owned Science Dynamics, a big company that did computerized medical billing that blew up into this huge company. Panzarella was very wealthy from that company, and Cheney worked for him for at least 2 or 3 years. Is like a general manager, hiring and firing, just because his friend was being nice and giving him a nice job that he didn't have to do much. But Cheney walks into the room and looks at Sandy like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "That's weird." I mean, that's so Don Cheney. Like, Panzarella immediately recognizes Cheney, and Cheney's like, "Who are you?" That's weird. That is so Cheney.
So that's a Robert Graysmith's claim,
That's Graysmith's claim in a book called Shooting Zodiac.
and you believe?
I believe that because John is so weird. That's something he would do just to kind of distance himself. You know, in Panzarella, if you look at Panzarella when he's in His Name is Arthur Lee Allen, he speaks
I
very
have
slow.
a huge problem with understanding what he was saying.
You know why?
Why?
Because he's got Parkinson's disease.
Uh-huh.
He eventually passed away from the Parkinson's disease. So he talks very monotone. And some people
Mm-hmm.
are so weird. They thought maybe he's the guy from Berryessa because Brian said he was kind of monotone or whatever. No, he does that because he's got early Parkinson's and it's affecting his speech. I worked with a man that had the same level. And, you know, some Parkinson's people twitch like that, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
Michael J. Fox, the actor. But Sandy's manifested a lot in his speech. So he speaks like that because the disease. And I know a lot about Sandy Panzarella. And when he was younger in the 70s and even 80s, he had a loud, booming voice, which is the opposite of that documentary. The documentary the Parkinson stole his voice, the disease. That's why he acts that way. I really wish that they would have put a note in the documentary explaining that because it's led to so much confusion. They, you know, like, oh, he's the Zodiac. Look how weird he is. He's got Parkinson's, people. He died of it. But I just wish the filmmakers had made a little, you know, like discreet note. Please understand, Mr. Panzarella has the early stages of Parkinson's disease. I wish they had done that, but they didn't.
Yeah. That's
It's a
why
shame.
I had real trouble understanding him.
Yeah,
So
he's hard to
that's the
understand
idea.
because of the Parkinson's. So I
Especially
really
for
wish they
a
had done that.
non-native English speaker like me.
Oh, it makes it even harder. And going back to Panzarella in that documentary, he tells a story, and if you listen closely, he talks about Arthur Lee Allen slamming a kitchen knife into the kitchen table
Yeah, like,
where the
you
guys are
think
living at Cal Poly. Allen comes to visit his brother Ron and Sandy in at Cal Poly in Pomona. And Allen comes in and he slams this butcher knife into the middle of the table. Well, if you listen closely, you can tell that Panzarella is just retelling the story from Don Chaney. That Panzarella is not telling that as if he was standing there when Allen did it. He's telling it as that is Don told him that. Isn't that interesting? Because if you
uh,
listen closely to that, it's obvious that Panzarella was not there when Allen slams the knife into the table. That's coming from Don poisoning him about how ALA's got to be Zodiac, Sandy.
you think that Cheney knew Ralph Spinelli?
No, but I always ponder that. I heavily ponder that because, of course, Spinelli is why Allen gets back on the radar again because we
In
know that I think that was
1991.
in not. Yes, guy, you know your stuff. And as you well know, that Cheney comes forward about Allen in July of 71. And that's what gets the ball rolling. And then Spinelli kind of is the reason it gets reintroduced. Is Spinelli's story about Arthur Lee Allen coming into the Crazy Horse Saloon and offering his services as a hitman. And here's what I say about that. Spinelli is a very interesting guy. He dies of cancer. He was really into golf. He got to meet his hero, Jack Nicklaus. You see, I know a lot about this stuff. Spinelli had 2 felony convictions for strong arm robberies. He did 2 long stints in prison. So we're talking about a double convicted felon here. Unfortunately, when you're a double convicted felon, your word is shit. I'm sorry, it's shit. You got 2 felony convictions, so it's worthless. Now we know that he was taunting knowing the identity of the Zodiac killer to get a lighter sentence, and they don't give it to him. George Bauer, right, doesn't give it to him. He says, "I'll tell you who Zodiac is if you let me off of these two crimes or give me a lighter sentence." And they say, "Hell no, no, no." And so Spinelli eventually gives it up and says it was Allen without getting
Yeah.
that reduced sentence. So that looks good in his favor. But the fact that he's got 2 felony convictions, he did time in San Quentin, they moved him around. He actually wrote a book about it. Never mentioned Zodiac, but it's just his experiences in prison. And I think Ralph Spinelli later did turn good. He got a PhD, he got a master's degree, and then he gets a PhD because he's trying to help ex-prisoners because he did so much time in prison. And but he's dying of cancer. I don't remember what kind of cancer he died. He got very thin at the end, very sad. I think he did turn his life around, but I don't ever think he came clean on the fact that the Allen deal was just made up. Because think of this: Allen goes to the Crazy Horse and says, "I'll go kill for you." And you remember that they had that bad blood story that's told in his name was Art Lee Allen about the fight that happened at Spinelli's house, and I think 57, where Allen comes bursting through Spinelli's door. And, it's about Allen's friend dancing with Spinelli at the party, and the girlfriend's boyfriend's mad, and the boyfriend knows Allen or something. They don't give you any detail, right? And that's how the documentary starts in the middle of that story.
Mhm.
And so the story is true. That story did basically happen between Spinelli and Allen back in the 50s. So why would Allen go approach a guy he's got bad blood with to offer his services as a hitman? And if Spinelli's not such a bad guy, why when Allen comes back to the Crazy Horse after the Stein murder and he says, "Do you believe me now that Stein got murdered?" And Spinelli says in the documentary, "Yeah, I believe you now. Now get the hell out of here." Remember that. So why if
Like he
Spinelli's
has the balls
if
to say
Spinelli's
that.
such a swell guy, why wouldn't he anonymously call the police and say, "Go look at this guy Allen"? He didn't. So
Okay.
Spinelli's still unfortunately a criminal. So I think he made it up for
Maybe
whatever
he,
reason.
I don't
He
know,
might have
maybe
heard
he
Allen
knew
might have been the
Graysmith.
Zodiac because I don't think it was a well guarded secret.
Maybe he knew Graysmith. Maybe he knew Graysmith,
That's a
or
good point. That's a good point. I don't think
read his
Cheney knew
first
him.
book.
I don't
Or
think
read
Cheney
his
knew
first
him.
book. No, I'm
But
talking about Ross Spinelli.
yeah, maybe Graysmith maybe knowing Spinelli. Who knows? Maybe because Graysmith really did shoehorn Allen in. We know that, making him look like a better suspect than he was with the painting party and all this BS he just totally made up. I mean, Allen's still a good suspect because even if we subtract all the Graysmith lies or the Graysmith, making it try to be better or exaggerations, we'll call it, Allen's still a pretty good suspect, even if you remove that, because he lived in Ground Zero at 32 Fresno Street, where I've been, and he did own a Zodiac wristwatch. And as we know, the only time that name Zodiac and that goes with that round circle and the X going through it, which we call the cross circle logo, the only time that logo goes with the name Zodiac is that wristwatch. It is
Yeah.
rare. And no, everybody on the street did not own a Zodiac Seawolf model watch. Allen got one for Christmas, and this is so critical, of 1967, not
And his brother
68.
got one too. His brother got
His
one
brother
too.
got one too, correct? Ronald got an identical watch from their mother for Christmas 67, and that comes from Ron. So that hurts Don Cheney because Don Cheney said Arthur Lee Allen had just gotten the watch for Christmas. And remember, Allen's birthday is December 20th, I believe,
20th.
right before Christmas.
1932, yeah.
Yeah. And but Cheney makes it clear it was a Christmas gift because Ron got one too. Ron's birthday was not in December. But Ron's the one that said we got those 67, not 68. So there's Don's problem because Don said Allen told him he was going to become the Zodiac killer, go kill people on Lover's Lanes and call himself Zodiac on New Year's Day of when? 1969. But wait a minute. He says that Allen just gotten the watch for Christmas 2 weeks earlier, or whatever, or maybe a week earlier for Christmas from his mom when Ron got it, and that he wanted him to come look at the watch to see if his mom had stiffed him and gave him a cheap watch. So there's
Mhm.
Don's first problem is the timing. He has to
Yeah,
move his
I read
timeline an
that in
entire
your book.
year.
I read that in your book.
Yeah.
But
Don moved
Fincher
the
said,
timeline a year. Why?
Fincher
Why
said
did
in
Don
his
move the timeline?
Fincher said in his movie also that it was New Year's Day, January 1st, 1969.
Right.
That
But the
Alan
watch
told the
was
story
given in
to
67.
no. The story about him becoming the Zodiac. I
Right,
was
right.
just
The story
I was
about Allen saying he was going to be the Zodiac. Yeah.
I was
New
not
Year's Day,
even
69.
I was not even 17 years old when I watched the Zodiac for the first time, And I was like, well, on January 1st, 1960, that really happened. He already did Lake Herman Road. So what the fuck?
Correct.
He
Correct.
already did the
Lake Herman
Zodiac.
Road happened in 68,
Why
December
would he
18th,
tell
68,
that
right?
when he already committed his first alleged murder?
Correct. Correct. And here's the problem. Here's what Don Chaney never planned on and never could see happening is that in his initial story, he was going over there to cheer up Arthur Lee Allen and to look at the watch. He was going to cheer up Allen because he had gotten fired from Valley Springs Elementary School. Big problem. Allen did not get fired from Valley Springs until March of 68. So there's that. And then you have Cheney talking about licking the stamps, remember? And that's interesting because Cheney said he wanted me to lick these stamps for these letters he was mailing on New Year's
Yeah.
Day 69. And then he told him to put his thumb in the paraffin wax. Here, but we know that the first Zodiac letter doesn't show up until July 4th or 5th, 1969, with the
August
three-part
4th,
cipher
August
and
4th,
with the
1960.
three-part cipher of the 408. So
That
he's
was
he's
all.
he's licking stamps for letters that won't be mailed for 7 months.
The first Zodiac letter happened on August 4th, 1969.
No, that's debut of Zodiac. I think the cipher letters were earlier, but I'm a
Maybe
little
July
rusty because I've been
29th.
doing DB Cooper. But debut of Zodiac, I think was that that's this is the Zodiac speaking. That's when he said that in the letter. That was I think that was August 4th. Um, I think that the cipher letters were earlier that had each had a piece of the cipher that you had to put together to decode it, which of course the Hardens did. And then Concerned Citizen also mails in a cipher key. So I know
Just
the
Google it.
debut. I know what they call debut of Zodiac because they call it that because he said this is the Zodiac speaking. The
All
first
right.
letters that came with
So
the ciphers did not. They only had the cross circle. It never said
I
Zodiac.
Googled it. I just Googled it. The first letters from the Zodiac Killer were mailed on July 31st, 1969.
Okay,
He
that makes
sent
sense.
identical,
Yeah,
identical
but those
handwritten
were still
message.
before the debut.
Yep, and parts of
Yeah.
a
Sorry, I'm a little off. It's probably
408
thinking Blue
simple
Rock.
cryptogram.
I got a
The
lot in my
something
head.
Z48.
But that makes it
Z48
worse. That even
three
makes it
numbers.
worse. He's talking about licking stamps for letters that don't show up in 7 months.
Yep.
If you give him 69.
What
And of
about the right
course, he
thumb?
struggles with that timeline.
The right thumb was even better. I mean,
Yeah.
better, like bigger lie.
Yeah. So he struggles with the timeline constantly because of Valley Springs. Because someone went back later, like decades later, and found out when Allen really got fired from Valley Springs. So that's why that in the watch is why Don is in trouble now. And as you brought up, Don is telling his story and says he actually catches himself in a lie and telling a lie. And his name is Arthur Allen. He's saying on New Year's Day 69, they leave the house at 32 Fresno in Vallejo, and that Allen takes him to Blue Rock Springs Park to show him where he's going to kill a couple there. And then they come up through Lake Herman Road. Well, what's the problem there that you just mentioned? Lake Herman Road has already happened on
Yeah.
December 18th, 1968. So Don has to catch himself and say, well, then he started going back in his memory there and was like doing a flashback and seemed to be going back in time because Don catches himself and realizes Lake Herman Road has already happened in this story because it happens before New Year's Day 69. It happened in December 18th of 68. So he has to quickly pivot. And only the killer could do that, in my opinion. So he says he seemed to want to linger there and was and told me what he wanted to do to some girl, and it wasn't pretty. That's what he says. It wasn't pretty. Isn't that an odd thing for a man to say? He's talking about a young couple getting killed in the prime of their life, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, and Don casually
Teenager.
says, and it wasn't pretty. Isn't that odd?
Very odd.
He's an odd duck, and then we get into the circumstantial evidence for Cheney that what newspaper writer became famous for writing about this case?
Paul Avery.
Paul Avery. You know where Paul Avery went to junior college?
Bakersfield. I
Bakersfield
know.
Junior College. Bakersfield Junior College in 1952 and 3. Guess who else went to Bakersfield Junior College at the same time as Avery?
Donald Lee Cheney.
Donald Lee Cheney, born and raised Bakersfield. Avery was from a little further out. His dad, his adopted father, Howard Malcolm Avery, was a Navy ordnance guy. And that's how Avery winds up at Bakersfield Junior College. And I'm telling you, it had probably 150 max male students. Think that Avery and Cheney didn't cross paths then? Ain't no way they didn't. They're there at the same time. Avery and Cheney. I mean, two major pieces of the Zodiac case. Even if you don't like Cheney as Zodiac, Cheney's the reason that we know about Allen. So Paul Avery going to the same tiny college in Bakersfield at the same time as Don Cheney is mind blowing. And then that first semester that they're there together, you know what play that the college put on?
No.
The Mikado. The Mikado.
Oh, the Mikado. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Bakersfield Junior College puts on their version of the Mikado, and all the actors, and actresses in the show are friends with Paul Avery, and they do it when Don and Avery are there together. They do a production of the Mikado. So you got three major pieces of the Zodiac Killer coming together in 1953. Or maybe that's the first
Definitely.
semester of 52. So at the same
You
time,
see
you've
the
got
major.
three major pieces of the Zodiac case. You have Paul Avery, Don Cheney, and the Mikado, who heavily influenced the Zodiac, all coming together in early 50s in Bakersfield. That
Insane.
is
But
beyond coincidence.
uh, you made a great point, and I was actually fascinated by it when I read your book last week, where when you said when you commented on your secret pal letter.
Secret Pal, yeah, that
That
was
letter is damning to
what they sent
Cheney.
to Paul Avery. The Zodiac Killer sent Paul Avery. Of course, he famously sent Paul Avery the Halloween card
Mhm. With a bloody
from your
piece of
secret
gold
pal,
sign.
from your secret pal. From and it
Yeah,
was addressed from your secret pal to Paul Averly. Remember, he doesn't spell Avery right. He puts an L in there, and I've got a theory about that, which is mind blowing.
it did.
Because that's how the Zodiac addressed Paul Avery. He called him Averly. Avery is Avery. Zodiac added an L. Arvely. Averly. It's basically spells Averly. Well, there's more than no matter who their suspect is, and David Ranchek, who you know is brilliant, who his team solved the 340, the three-man team led by David Ranchek. Brilliant guy. That's why I don't touch ciphers. Why would you need to touch ciphers when you have David Ranchek to do it? This guy's the genius that broke the 340 with Jarl Van Eck and Sam Blake. You don't need to be full of it. That's why this goofball that came out with this Black Dahlia crap using the ciphers didn't even show it to Dave Aranchek. Well, that already makes me skeptical. And of course, Dave makes these great produced YouTube videos and basically destroys that whole notion, which is beautiful. Smart guy. Dave Aranchek is a software engineer, super smart guy. So is Sam Blake and so is Jarl Van Eck. Took those three geniuses to break the 340 after 50 years of attacks. That's how good these dudes are. I mean, so why would you ever want to tie a suspect to the ciphers? I mean, that's insanity. Actually, I said that in my documentary. They asked me, what would you not do if you were, trying to find Zodiac? And I said this, tie him to the ciphers. I said that is a rookie move because the rest aren't solvable. They're too short, unfortunately. But why would you do it? I mean, like Dave is the guy to do it, and that guy not going through Dave is screaming that he's got a shitty suspect or a shitty theory. His guy
Yeah,
could be the Black Dahlia murderer, but he's not the Zodiac. I mean, Gary Post has a better chance. Let's face it. It's just terrible. But anyway, going back to Cheney and Bakersfield, it's just crazy that Paul Avery's going there. But okay, I was going back to. I lost my train of thought, but you'll like this. Um, we can all agree, and this is why I brought up David Ranchek, because he did such a great video on the Zodiac killer being influenced by comic books. Now, you already know about Tim Holt, I'm sure. because by fire, by gun, by rope comes from a Tim Holt comic, which Tim Holt
I
was
read
a
it in your book. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I
Tim
didn't know
Holt
that.
was a real live actor for RKO Pictures, and
Uh-huh.
but they also he had a comic book persona called Tim Holt, but it was a comic book character. And the one comic book shows Lady Doom spins the wheel of death, where it lands is how you're going to die, by rope, by water, by fire. And Zodiac repeated that. And Dave and a lot of Zodiac killer researchers like myself believe that he was heavily influenced by comics, namely Red Rider and Tim Holt, and we think others. Um, so a friend of mine found this, that there is a comic book series called Mickey Finn, and I think he's like a police detective in an old comic. And I don't know if that's newspapers or they actually had the physical comic books or the newspaper. And we know Don Cheney like comics. He admitted it in the interview with Who. He said he always read when he read a newspaper, he always read the comics first. That's true. And so there's heavily belief that Zodiac was influenced by comics. Dave Aranchik talks about like decoder wheels for Batman, and there's even a Batman that brings up the Mikado that Dave found. But anyway, there's a Mickey comic book called Mickey Finn, and in Mickey Finn there is a fictional junior college called Averly College. Averly, which
Oh,
is a rare word. The way Zodiac called Paul Avery, there is a college, fictional college in Mickey Finn called Averly Junior, not regular, junior 2-year college called Averly that my friend found. And that's so Don Cheney. Now, I'm not going to sell my soul that that's where it came from, but I like it. Averly Junior College in a fictional comic. Because if you just Google or AI the word Averly, you're not going to get much. Other
definitely
than
not.
that's what
I
Zodiac
have to
called
tell you
Paul.
something about Z13.
Yeah,
Zodiac already said in Z408 that he's not going to reveal his name. So
true.
he was.
And people, and yet people
And
still
they're
want to
still
believe
trying
him.
to track.
Or the my
By the
name
way,
is. My name is.
my name is Donald L. Cheney. Cheney, 13
You,
letters.
man, I'll tell you. I got to tell you this crazy story real quick. A dude in another country, not you, sent me a decoded my name is, and did all the math behind it and got that answer. And he was like a math professor in the UK, and
Donald L.
literally the dude sent me all the paperwork, but I didn't put it on my channel. I was a little scared of it because I'm not a cipher guy. If Dave hasn't looked at it, I don't even go there. But this guy did it. I didn't do it. He sent it to me because I'm the Cheney guy, and YouTube literally took his entire channel over it. They didn't even give him a strike or a warning. They took his whole channel, which wasn't some big channel like yours or anything, or even my little tiny channel. They took his whole channel over the cipher. And
But
there's
what?
several, if you Google on YouTube possible Z13s or my name or whatever, you'll get multiple videos with theories like Larry Kane or all this stupid crap, or Ross Sullivan, or even Gary Post probably. But they took this guy's whole channel over it. Are you kidding? It was weird, man. So I didn't touch it.
All right.
And the dude
Well,
he had tested it. He had the math against it, but I don't know ciphers. I mean, if Dave doesn't okay it, I wouldn't go near it. I didn't. I think he did try to. Lots of people try to contact Dave, and he can't answer them all. The guy, he works for a living like I do. He's a software engineer in Virginia. He never. One good thing about Dave Aranchik, he's got the highest street credit in Zodiac, because he never pushed a suspect. He never says, I kind of like this guy, I kind of like Doer or whoever. He never has. So he keeps
just
such high credibility. He's gone after some bad theories like that guy with the Black Dahlia. I can't remember his name. Actually, unfortunately, I had a buddy that fell for that crap, but
yeah, this was
who
4
also
months
liked
ago,
Cheney.
right?
Huh?
That was 4 months ago.
About 4 months ago, yeah. About 4 months ago, correct.
I didn't even bother reading about it. I would just come
Oh,
on.
it was a nothing burger. And this guy had these two other cipher experts, not Dave or Jarl or Sam. It was two other cipher guys that were like, I don't know, FBI, I don't know what they were, and some police detectives from LAPD Like, I don't know. I think they were former LAPD. Of course, Zodiac never killed anybody in LA, unless you want to count nearby Riverside, which I don't think was Zodiac. And Dave Aranchek took him out to the woodshed, as we would say here in the States, meaning he humiliated him. These guys signed off on these ciphers and they were crap. And Dave goes through the videos. If you go to David Aranchek, I think it's called Decoding Zodiac, or the name of Dave's channel. Somebody can put it up. Great,
Mhm.
well produced videos because he's a smart dude, real high produced. And Dave takes this guy out to the woodshed on the ciphers. Like, what he came up with was just, he's literally hammering home that it has to be this guy by using a hammer, and he's literally nailing a square peg in a round hole. And Dave just destroys it in 2 or 3 videos on his channel. It's beautiful. Maybe it's Cracking Zodiac because it's all about the ciphers, because that's what Dave's into. But Dave has never ever promoted a suspect, so kudos to him.
Definitely, just the facts.
Yeah, just the
we
facts, guy.
I told you that we have to talk about one major problem, the only major problem with Donald Lee Cheney: height.
Yeah.
So, Mike Mageau said 5'8",
Correct.
220.
I don't remember the 220. I remember the 5'8".
In 1991, that scene in the movie, I don't know if that was real, but he said around 220.
He did say 5'8". You're right. He said 5'8".
5'8", definitely.
He did. He did say 5'8". That's correct. And Mike Mageau identified him at 5'8", and he said he was some form of stocky. That's the only thing that carries through every description of Zodiac from a living witness, or a witness that later died, like Cecilia, is some form of stocky. Oh, I think Mike Mageau used the word walrus. I might be wrong, but he did say 5'8". You're correct. But
5'8".
we know that Mike Mageau was in the passenger side, which is interesting, because Zodiac gets out of the car and he walks over to Mike's side.
Yeah, he was totally.
Isn't that interesting that if Darlene was the target, why does Zodiac get? So the cars are parked. Darlene and Mike are parked head in. I've been to Blue Rock Springs Park. And then the Zodiac leaves and comes back, as we know, parks right behind them in a similar car that looks like a Corvair. And he gets out of his driver's side line. 2 cars are lined up like this. Zodiac gets out of the driver's side, goes behind Darlene's car, and goes over to Mike and starts shooting. So Darlene gets killed as Zodiac's shooting through Mike's window. And then we know that Mike's hit. One of the shots goes through, I think, Mike's neck and hits Darlene. Darlene later dies on the way to the hospital with Richard Hoffman. Mike is hit and he's in pain, and he throws himself into the back seat and he's thrashing around in pain, screaming. Zodiac hears it. It walks back and puts, I think, another 3 shots in Mike. And as we know, Mike survives. And so Mike, on his height estimate, is really I'll wait for you to come back. Okay, so Mike in 5'8". He's sitting in a car looking up, right? He's sitting. He never stands out. He never gets out of the car. He said when the man walked up, they thought he was what? A cop. They were already putting their IDs out on the shelf, and they were thinking, and then Darlene said something weird, like she thought it was an ex-boyfriend or a stalker or something. But Mike is already getting out his driver's license because he thinks it's the cops. It's 4th of July night, firecrackers going off. Brilliant as Zodiac to attack on that night, because you're hearing pop, pop, pop already from 4th of July in America. And Mike said this: when the man walked up, he had a bright flashlight in his face at night. Ain't no way Mike's going to get a good height estimate when he's sitting looking up and he's got a bright flashlight in his face. So his height estimate really is a throwaway to me, because of the fact he's looking up and he's got a flashlight in his face. And Mike, unfortunately, never gets better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Something happened for a second.
Yeah. So Mike's 5'8" is worthless. Mike's 5'8" is worthless. Because he's got a flashlight in his face. He's got a bright flashlight in his face. All the people
involved in the Presidio Heights murder, from 5'8" to 5'10".
Never heard 5'8" in Presidio, only 5'10". And Never heard 5'8". Not even from Robbins
That
or
Falk
never
said
seen a 5'8".
5'10". Falk said 5'10".
Correct. Falk had 5'10", just casually looking, but we know the problems Falk had. And what else was going on at Presidio? That it's nighttime. Nighttime. Uh, Witness descriptions are so wrong on height. As good as my Cooper suspect is, they like to hit him on height because the TB Cooper suspect witness descriptions are 5'10" to 6 feet. One is even 6'1". My suspect was 5'8". We know that DB Cooper was wearing some kind of ankle boot that's going to give him another inch. But what I know is this: the Innocence Project, that gets a lot of people out of jail that are falsely accused, did a study on witness descriptions. And these are guys that have later been found with DNA locked. We know who the killer is now. They would find out who the killer is by DNA. Maybe like an Othram, great company where I grew up, Woodlands, Texas. Shout out Othram, greatest crime solvers alive. They know now that these crimes have been solved with DNA conclusively. That they went back and looked at the witness descriptions, and you know what they found? 70% were wrong.
Whoa.
Now they have the killer because of DNA. 70% of the witness descriptions were inaccurate because now we know who the killer is because of DNA. And they went back to the descriptions before they identified the killers. 70% are wrong. So
Yeah.
back on Zodiac's height, let's talk about Lake Berryessa. Deputy David Collins says this in the original, this is the Zodiac speaking, that after Brian and Cecilia were attacked by knife, Cecilia was still alive. She's leaning up against the tree. Dave Collins she's freezing because she's been stabbed and she's losing blood, but she's still
Mhm.
lucid. Collins gives Cecilia his police jacket to warm her up. And Collins says this. He says, she's standing literally 2 and 3 feet in front of Cecilia Shepard. And he said, and he's, the ground could be a little off, I admit. I don't know. It's a peninsula called Double Oak Ridge. You know Zodiac when you
Yeah.
know the name of the island. And he says, I'm 5'10". How tall do you think he was? Now, remember, he's wearing the hood. That could have given maybe an inch. I don't know. So all's fair. But she said, about 2 inches taller than you. And he's 5'10". That puts Zodiac at 6 feet as per Cecilia. Now, Brian, I think, had something like 6 feet, but he said that since he's 6'7", everybody's too short. Don't even listen to me on height. So the height thing, I would say if Zodiac was 6'4", throw him out. Absolutely. Even 6'2", probably throw him out. 6 feet is in play all day long. But 6'4", nah, he's gone. He's gone. If a 6'4" guy is gone. There's who makes an actually not a horrible Zodiac killer suspect is Fred Manali, if you know that name, who comes up a lot in Santa Rosa. And of course,
Honestly, I
Trey
don't.
Smith wrote
Drew,
about
I
him.
think something is wrong with your mic.
Hold on, I'm going to do this. Let me do this. Since my phone's charged, I can go back to this.
Okay, try that. How's that?
Same, but
The
maybe
mic?
it's on me. I don't know.
Could be.
Is there
'Cause
any difference?
I just put my
No, it's worse
Apple
now.
mic.
Unfortunately.
It's worse?
Yeah.
Oh, Daniel said it's worse.
I don't know.
Said it's duller. Works for me. My sister said it's good. How about now? 'Cause now
I can hear you. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
let me do that. Okay, so you got to give Cecilia 6 feet. You got to give 5'10" at Presidio. Never saw 5'8" there. Mike Bijot's got a flashlight in his face, and he's looking up. So 6 feet's in play, in my opinion. You get to 6'2", 6'3". I think Ross Sullivan was pretty tall. I think he was, God, like 6'3", and he was big. Ross Sullivan weighed 300 pounds, and we know he weighed 300 pounds before the Zodiac murders because he got in trouble in a telephone booth where he tried to pin a man in a telephone booth, and they actually listed his height and weight because he was so big. So 6 feet's in play for Zodiac all day long, in my opinion.
All right, fair point. Well, it's already been 2 hours. Jesus, incredible.
Oh man, I get going. I haven't done Zodiac in so long, but you know it. I love it. I love it when somebody comes along and knows it. But as far as Cheney goes, just real quick, the circumstantial evidence is mind blowing. Even Richard Grinnell, who I think knows more about the case than any singular person in the world, he's in England. Smart guy. ZodiacCiphers.com is his website.
Oh yeah, great website.
Great website. That's Richard Grinnell. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but it is absolutely the best website. He said two of the biggest, what they call synchronicities, he said one was the fact that the word Geik shows up in one of the ciphers, even though it's not the spelling Richard Gaikowski used. But he said, other than that, the biggest one is Donald Lee Cheney's richest relative on his mother's side, surname is Paradise. And Paradise is spelled.
Oh yeah, I actually read that in your book. Yeah, I know.
Paradice.
With
Zodiac
C.
spelling.
Yeah. Just like
you know how
like
rare that is?
Zodiac
That's English. That's English. That's an That's an English surname. You know how rare that surname is? It's like 1 out of 15 million. That's how rare the surname is.
Yeah.
My name is pretty rare.
I
Beeson.
read that in your book.
I'm English. Paradise is uber rare. And this is Don Cheney's grandfather, maternal grandfather, whose name is Fryer. F-R-Y-R-E-A-R, pronounced Fryer. Well, what did Zodiac talk about? Looking for victims when? Fry night. F-R-Y, night is when I'm going to go find my victims. Fry night.
Whoa.
Donald Lee Cheney's mother's maiden name was Fryer. And then he's got a close relative, a first cousin twice removed, named Dorotha's mother's name. Sorry, Dorotha Fryer. His grandfather's first cousin is Mary Ingersoll Mary Ingersoll Paradise, who married an architect named Frank Paradise out of Pocatello, Idaho. So his grandfather's first cousin's last name is Paradise, Paradice, with the Fry. I mean, I know that's circumstantial, but it is like getting hit by lightning when you add Paul Avery, Bakersfield, Mikado, and you hit Paradise. Donald Lee Cheney was an avid big game hunter. He loved using knives. He used carbon steel blades. Yep. He knew how to sharpen his own knives, and he also did what? He made his own leather sheaths for his knives. He made custom leather that his grandfather taught. Yeah, I even had an example of a hatchet that Don made. Brian thought it looked wooden, but I think what Brian saw at Berryessa was a nice brown leather sheath. Wooden sheaths are very rare, but Brian doesn't. Brian's not into weapons, and he admits it. I think what Brian saw was a custom-made leather sheath, and the knife blade Brian says was about a foot long. So, other than that, quickly is the documentary, the second one that we weren't going to talk about. What's interesting is they're playing audio recordings of Donald Lee Cheney. And they're ones I've never heard, and I'm an expert on Don Cheney. And I believe who owns those recordings is Robert Graysmith. And if you hear Cheney's voice in those, it sounds totally different than his name is Arthur Lee Allen, because he's younger. And he has what's called a Bakersfield drawl, because Bakersfield was inhabited by people that fled Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl migration. So they sounded like they were Okies. So it had a certain kind of southern drawl. And Brian remembered it being a really odd drawl. And Bakersfield, I'm in a Bakersfield group that has like 10,000 people. And I asked them about the accent and how words are pronounced. And they said 80-90% said their grandparents or their parents had that drawl. And they also said that the phrase fiddle and fart or fiddle and fart around, which we know the Zodiac wrote, was so common in Bakersfield, it was like saying how good morning. That's how common. I'd never heard the phrase fiddle and fart or fiddle and fart around in Texas in my life. Wow. But yet in Bakersfield, it's 90% of the respondents, which I had over 400, said that phrase was so known in Bakersfield, it was like good morning. So I'd love it if Brian would listen to that documentary. And I tried to send an email to one of his sons, but you can't get to Brian without going through one of his sons. And Brian's getting up there now. He's still a practicing lawyer. His wife's an anesthesiologist. He's got two sons that are married with young children. Well, now they're grown now. The children are a little older. Brian is a grandfather, of course. But
He's
I
like
love it.
77 years old now.
Yeah, yeah. I think they call it the Tri-City area, which is oh shoot, they call it Redlands, California. So if you look him up, I
Uh,
need yeah, Redlands, where his wife's an anesthesiologist, does really well, and he's a multidiscipline lawyer still practicing. I would love it if Ben, just said his name, Hartnell, would let his father listen to those recordings on that second documentary and see if it jarred his memory. Because as you said, Brian always claimed if he ever heard it again, he'd know it.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, your approach is definitely unique. You don't claim as anyone is the Zodiac. You
Yeah,
said
because
this
I
guy
wasn't
is a
there.
good
Same
suspect.
with Cooper. Same with Cooper. I wasn't there. Like my book says about Cooper, just maybe DB Cooper, because I didn't go out and find Ted Braden. It came to me. He came to me. I mean, I like things. I like Vietnam and I like veterans, and I loved all things Vietnam, like the A-Team TV show. So Braden was interesting to me because he was Black Ops in Vietnam. So to me, I always loved the DB Cooper case, and I love Black Ops in Vietnam, Special Forces. So he's the candidate for me because that's two things I like. So that's why I like him. But I did not go out and find him. Two other guys did the background on it and gave me permission to use it, which is Snowman and Bruce Smith. They went asking around about to the Black Ops guys, who do you think DB Cooper is? And they only heard one name. But like I said, I wasn't on the plane. And like a friend told me, even if I could prove Ted Braden was in the Portland airport, that still doesn't make him DB Cooper. And even this, remember this, even if you have DNA is still circumstantial to a certain degree because it's one out of like however many million and it's hard to get around. But you could plant someone's DNA if you wanted to really get them. You could just go get their DNA out of a trash can or somehow and try to plant it at the crime scene. If you really wanted to be dirty, you could. So
They
unfortunately,
could have had actually his DNA because of the cigarettes he was smoking, and when he was,
right. Guess
but
what
it
happened to the
was
cigarettes?
lost by
Thrown away. They weren't
Las
lost. They were intentionally discarded. Ryan Burns
Las
found
Vegas
that out.
PD, right?
Las Vegas PD. Ryan Burns found out. And Brian Burns actually, my friend Ryan, tracked down the actual FBI 302 where they admitted they threw them away, which is
Whoa.
highly unusual because going back to Othram in the Woodlands, they're solving 50-year-old crimes with cigarette butts through DNA because David Middleman, who runs that operation, brilliant man, learned how to extrapolate weak DNA samples into stronger samples. Because when you test DNA, it degrades it. But Othram has solved many cases with cigarette butts that are over 50 years old. So why did those cigarette butts survive these rape cases and stuff, but yet DB Cooper's cigarettes were thrown away? Of course, there was no DNA in 1971, but they kept the cigarettes from all these other 50-year-old cases that Othram solved.
Yeah,
But
that's
yet
a shame. That's a real
Cooper's
shame.
cigarettes are in the trash.
Well,
Makes
all
me
in all,
wonder.
both in our lifetimes, both cases will 99% will remain unsolved.
I agree. Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, there will
because I
be.
don't think there'll be a deathbed confession in either. And I don't think you're going to, and that's another thing that this Joker said about this Black Dahlia deal. He said that he had or identified the weapon from Berryessa as a bayonet from Japan or something ridiculous. Well, first thing I asked to somebody that had some knowledge of this stuff coming out was, did they contact Brian Hartnell? Because the only way to prove that that was the Berryessa weapon would be what? That it had Brian's or Cecilia's DNA on it. But this weapon doesn't have anything on it. So I could just pull one, get some 55-year-old weapon from a pawn shop and claim that was the knife. If it doesn't have Brian's or Cecilia's DNA on it, it's worthless.
Definitely.
So that's
Well,
what we're
Drew,
dealing
it's
with.
almost close to 2 a.m. over here.
Yeah, it's late,
It
man. I
was
enjoyed it.
awesome.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Hope people watch it. Sorry about the technical stuff and losing you once.
Uh, Thank you so much for doing this live stream. I'm sorry one more time about all the technical problems during the first half hour. So that's
No,
why
we made it
probably
work, man,
lost
and
a good
we made it
chunk of
work.
the audience. But it is what
Great
it is.
audience.
I'm doing this on my own, everything, and
Yeah, it's a
I'm
lot of
not
work.
really a technical guy when it comes. I
I'm
mean,
not
I
either.
know the basics,
I'm not
but
either.
unfortunately, it happened. So we probably lost a good chunk of the audience that thought it was at 11 p.m.
But it's
my
YouTube, and they can
time
always
or
find it later.
5 p.m. Yeah, true. It will be always online, so they can watch it later. Thank you so much. I
Thanks, my
hope we'll be
friend.
in touch in the future, and we
Absolutely.
can do, of course, one more live stream whenever you want, whenever you're
Let's do it.
available.
And if anybody's still on, go check out You Should Not Know This on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. You Should Not Know This. If you like mafia stuff, we got it.
All right. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
brother.
Drew. It was a
Thanks, brother.
pleasure, and thank you
Thanks,
guys
everybody.
all for watching. Goodbye, and thank you one more time.